Doug or Jessica, would you maybe share the agenda or post the agenda that we could just take a quick look at all together? I know we all have copies of it.
I'll fill a gap here while Jessica's pulling that up, no problem. The first item on the agenda is an operational update, and that'll be Aisha and Holly will provide that for the board. It's again, I know you all welcome the opportunity to hear it again because you'll hear it again at your November board meeting with a little bit of updated, some more detailed financials, but it's just that it's context, background and context for the discussion on values and the important component this evening, as well as the values discussion, is the budget priorities as we move forward in developing our budget proposal for next fiscal. So with that, Thomas, do you want to add some more with the agenda up?
I think after the district updates, we're going to take a while to revisit our values, see if they still reflect our current thinking and priorities, and whether or not any adjustments are needed. Then we're going to take a look at the budget priorities and have a similar conversation. Do we feel like they are still relevant and timely and useful and in service to what we're trying to do? The last thing we're going to do is take a quick look at the parking lot, which was the tool that we developed a few years ago as a mechanism for great ideas, great opportunities that kind of spontaneously appear during the year to go somewhere to be vetted or assessed. We're going to wrap things up and then call it good.
Perfect.
Well, so you want to go for it, you and your staff?
Yes, we'll have Aisha and Holly provide the update.
Yes, let me pull up our presentation for you. Just a moment. All right, that should be appearing on your screen. Let me know. I see you on my screen, Doug, if you could let me know. Great. Hello, board members. I'm Aisha Panis, your Park Services Director, and Holly Thompson and I will be walking you through some of the great updates of the district's operations over the last few months. And so we have a variety of topics to cover with you. We will close with a tease of the quarterly revised operating plan information that you'll get at our board meeting in November. And to kick us off, I will have Holly do so.
Thanks, Aisha. We're going to begin by taking a look at fall registration, just to get context of how things are going at THPRD this fall. So these numbers reflect where the district stood just 2 weeks after registration, comparing how we did with 2021 and in years past. So you can see the good news is on an upswing. So we see a 43% increase in participation in fall programming this year as compared to last year. But we're still below where we've been in the past. We've still got room to go to get back to normal. Apologize for my dog there if you heard that noise. He's stretching in the background. So anyways, we have room to grow to get back to where we were before the pandemic. On the next slide, please. We have also made significant progress this quarter on our diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility goals. We produced a map of THPRD for our Spanish speakers, and we're able to hand that out during fall registration. We also produced a welcome packet in both English and Spanish that we incorporated in Centro de Bienvenida, and we are working to roll out at all of our centers as we welcome new patrons to the district. We will be expanding that welcome guide coming into spring and fall registration, both with evergreen material that welcomes you to the district and material each session for registration to get people interested in classes and activities. And we'll also be expanding that into additional languages as we grow. We also participated in the National Welcoming Week movement in September, honoring immigrant and refugee communities, and we hosted 8 Welcoming Week activities, including after-school programming activities and displays in all of our centers to affirm our values that we are a welcoming and inclusive community. And we had people literally come to those events and say this was their first time coming to an event in the United States and how welcome and included they felt. We literally had folks that it was their first month in the US, and that was just such a wonderful, wonderful activity. On the next slide, we'll see that events are in full swing. This weekend, actually, we have a lot going on. We have the Fall Fest, the Family Fun Fest at Cedar Hills, and we have the Zimpacho Festival at Conestoga, kicking off many of our activities that we'll be having celebrating Dia de los Muertos throughout the district this fall. So super excited about that. We've had Halloween activities. The Halloween Silly Walk at Conestoga was incredibly well attended, and things are rolling. So those events are active and feeling good. On the next slide, you'll see that we've had some of our programming return to centers. Our friends at the LC Stir Senior Center were super excited to have that resource fair back, and they had many vendors there welcoming our 55 and better crowd at the Stir Center. Coming up, it's not on this slide, but on November 5th, we'll welcome the community back to the Nature Center for Newt Day and all the Newt Day activities. We had a successful fall native plant sale. We've had an active after-school program. You can see the kiddos having fun with enrichment and STEAM enrichment activities in Thrive. And we've expanded our free fitness in the park activities. So if you'll remember when we started those, they were in the summer. Now they're going year round with free activities for fitness in culturally specific ways throughout the district, which is really awesome. Next slide, we'll talk about staffing. So as you know, staffing continues to be a challenge for us and with all employers, but we've been digging deep and we've been hiring folks, and we've seen a lot of movement and growth. You know, 25% of THPRD employees, and since the pandemic came to an end and we were able to open facilities, I guess that phase of the pandemic came to an end, have either been promoted into new positions or some have left the agency. So we are in the midst of working with our partners in the THPRD Employees Association to work on an update to our classification and compensation structure to be more competitive, aligned with the district's values. Thank you, board, for your support of investing in employees and in technology. And we've also seen 2 increases in the past year to our pay scale for part-time employees. So really looking at the full spectrum of THPRD employees, both part-time and full-time, and figuring out how to be more competitive and keep up with the market and help with our retention and attraction. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Aisha.
Thank you, Holly. We're also happy to announce that the Harmon Swim Center is now open. We did have a slight delay in that just because we wanted to wrap up a project that we have out at the site, and that was a variety of ADA improvements to address some barriers that were on our patrons' ability to get from the parking lot into the building. So we've done some revised concrete work and paving. We have replaced some curb cuts in the parking lot and sidewalks. We also have a new ADA entry ramp and fixing some slope issues that we had out there. There's also been some updates to the catch basins in the parking lot to better provide drainage for better use of that space. And so we're excited that that space is up and running. And our team has been working hard on getting things ready out at the Aloha Swim Center for that pool to be opening next month. We also have a project winding down at Garden Home Recreation Center that has had some roof and ceiling repairs in the front part of the building over the main office and also affecting our gymnasium and weight room. So that has affected our programming for the last month or so, or a couple of months. And so we're looking forward to that project ending soon and getting everybody back into all those spaces within the building. We are getting a new roof over the west side of that building and making some structural improvements to that space within the building. We also want to give you an update on some of the work we're doing on our maintenance operations side. And so you'll see a roof. This is the Fano Creek roof in the upper left. So we're addressing roof leaks, and this is the time of year where we find out where we have those leaks because it's starting to rain. But this is a project that has been on our list that we are managing, and so that is one aspect of the roof repairs that we're working on. In the upper middle, you'll see we've got staff checking out our heating and HVAC and plumbing and furnace systems just to make sure that we're ready for the winter. We're edging fields. We are replenishing the playground surfacing, the wood chips you see there in the lower left. And we're also doing something in line with our solid waste and recycling plan, which is making sure that as we're pruning and as we're taking care of downed limbs and things in the parks, that we're chipping those things on site and spreading those out. So you see the image in the bottom middle of this screen that shows us spreading out those chips and kind of recycling that solid waste in place, which is great. On the nature and trail side, we are, of course, doing all of our normal activities, edging around trails. And in the lower left, you see a beaver deceiver that we're trying to keep those beavers from being the active little engineers that they are and stopping up all the water that creates some flooding challenges. So we're trying to outthink them, but they are clever. We're also, as you see in the upper right, getting ready for a major planting portion of our season. So we have a bunch of container plants that we'll be taking out and getting planted real soon. And then while the grounds are still not too saturated, we're out using our heavy equipment and we're taking down trees, shredding them up as we need to. And so we're getting things ready for the winter that way. On the planning and design development front, we did open Parivar Park in the last couple of months. So you see that image on the left. It's got that great rock wall with the slide. We also had our Abbey Creek concept planning event earlier in the summer. And so you see that image on the right. This is something that will be coming to your board in the November meeting. So you'll see the preferred concept plan that we are proposing. We're also working on some planning efforts. Those include the Downtown Parks and Open Space Framework Plan that we're working on in partnership with City of Beaverton. And that should come back to you again for an update within the next several months. And our own comprehensive plan update and subsequent strategic plan is also rolling along. We visited you a number of times in the last several months, and we anticipate coming back to you in December with a draft plan for review, and we are working concurrently on our strategic plan. Finally, before I leave this page, I just wanted to share some really good news. You may have been aware of the the $1.9 million that we were awarded through the Metro Parks and Nature Bond for our West Side Trail crossing of Highway 26. But just in the last couple of weeks, we were also notified of a $2.05 million grant award for the Beaverton Creek Trail, and that was through the Regional Flexible Funds Program. So we're really thrilled about that, and that is, of course, excellent work done by our no longer here working with us grant administrator, Cindy Dower, but she set us up for some great success, and we're thrilled to have those projects to look forward to. Finally, I just have an update on the revised operating plan. This is information you're going to get more so at the November meeting. But as you know, we're going to continue to monitor our fiscal realities on this quarterly basis, and we adjust as we need to. Our planning cycles are very short, and as a government agency with about 20% of our budget based on actual program revenues within the year, we're going to have to continue to adjust until the participation levels return. And those staffing and budgets resemble the more typical patterns that we had seen in the past, pre-pandemic. So we are working on concluding the first quarterly report for this budget year, and you'll get that update at the November meeting. Right now, the staff in finance is working very much with our audit team, and we're about to wrap up the work with the auditors for them to finalize that annual audit. And then also just we're working internally on the relaunch of our Tyler Munis conversion, and that's going to begin to work actively with our staff training and developing of our initial modules in January 2023, and we anticipate a go live date within the January 2024 timeframe. So with that, I'll conclude and stop to see if you have any questions for us. Yes, Tia.
For our, I know we said that we're still 18% down from the previous like highlight years. But is that 18% down? That's not for a lack of interest. That's more of lack of staffing and opportunities. Is that right?
I think staffing is absolutely a concern. What we also know is that just the comfort level hasn't necessarily returned with
Oh, it hasn't.
participation.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good to know. Thank you.
I just had a question about maintenance.
Mhm.
And just curious, based on some personal experience with maintenance in my own work setting, will any of that facility maintenance impact folks, patrons come into using facilities? Or good example, we're re-roofing in the building I'm in, and it smells awful, and so we haven't been able to work out of our building. So I
Sure,
just want to
sure.
make sure that we have some I don't think it's something that had been really considered on this end. So I'm hoping we don't have those issues.
Totally appreciate what you're sharing. We have had to make some somewhat difficult calls because we've been keeping our patrons' comfort and ability to access facilities in mind. It is why we had to delay the opening of Harmon. We weren't able to have the open house the day we wanted to, just because the paving project started getting into constraints, and we just didn't feel it was our best play to invite folks back before we were truly ready to welcome them. So we've definitely had that. We made the choice to close an expanded area for that garden home roofing project, just because that wasn't going to be an enjoyable place to be while the project was taking place. So yes, we do try to
Wonderful.
take that into account for sure.
Very happy to hear that.
Sure.
Thank you, Aisha and Holly. Great.
Sure.
All right. I think, Thomas, we're ready to head into reconfirming values.
Fantastic. So we want to, as we mentioned, take a look at the values through which we've been operating for at least a couple of years now, and discuss whether or not any revisions or updates or tweaks are needed. And we want to make sure in this discussion and in the next one around budget priorities that every single member speaks and weighs in. So that's going to be important. So let's start with these values first. Well, maybe not. Here we go. Everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
So there are three values that you have committed to for the past couple of years. The first is leading with equity. And you have said that you are leading with race when it comes to leading with equity, and that means that you understand equity is about more than just race, but you are also leading with race or paying special attention to racial equity, environmental stewardship, and then commitment to community vision. So Doug and Felicita, remind me on this redlined suggested revised language, if that's coming forward with the recommendation of staff, or if several board members have kind of talked about that, and where does that come from?
Yes, it is a staff update, I think, of the current value statement to really, again, acknowledge the environmental stewardship side. You know, previously, as you can see, natural spaces, it's to try to broaden that perspective a little bit, because we know we've had a lot of conversations with regard to enabling, acknowledging within our vision plan that truly our community called this out as well.
Okay. So let's take a look at the first one. So we'd like to hear from each of you your thoughts about this particular value and your thoughts about reconfirming this as one of your 3 leading values going forward for the next year.
I'll say I'm all about recommitting and reaffirming that this is a critical value to us as a board and as an organization. I think it's tricky having 2 to 3 tough years where part of me wonders, like, if we hadn't experienced the pandemic, like, would we be changing these every year? But probably not, because values don't change.
Yeah.
We wrote a good set of values, so it makes sense that they're still good. But yeah, I still like that one and think it should stay.
Okay. Others of you?
I agree. I think I've read it several times trying to figure out somewhere I would tweak or, pivot, but I think it's absolutely appropriate and deserves its place there.
All right.
I echo the same comments. Definitely affirm. I think we're right on track.
Okay. Heidi and Tia?
Oh, I agree. It's perfect.
Okay.
I agree with the caveat of where I was last year when we had the conversation about, I'm fine with that special attention to racial equity, but I really want to challenge us to go beyond that. Our LGBTQ, age, ability, all of that, just really keeping that at the forefront as well.
Heidi, do you feel like this first sentence frames that adequately?
I think so. And I think that was sort of where we came together last year when we had the conversation about it. I just want to put it out there again. I think it's, yeah.
Okay.
But I'm fine with it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Are we ready to move on to environmental stewardship?
Yes.
All right. So take a look at this. Take a minute to read it again and weigh in with your thoughts. So in whatever order you choose, let's hear what you think about this.
I feel like we could say more. I mean, I agree with like the value of environmental stewardship, but I feel like it just isn't a robust paragraph of climate change and all of that kind of thing. It just says we're going to inquire and take care of it, but it doesn't talk about like, and I know climate resiliency and climate action, and that's a big focus on, what we're attempting next year about reducing our carbon footprint and everything. And I would like to see that in our value stated more clearly.
Okay.
I was going to say, certainly to add to that with some of the things that we talk about with climate change. And so I agree with T on that. I think this is still an important value for us to maintain and move forward with, but I certainly think we could say more.
Okay. Others of you?
I'll jump in. This is Barbie. I agree. I think one component that might be missing for me is the responsibility component. I don't know if we can I'm not the wordsmith, but I think it's not only do we value our natural environment, but right, we have a responsibility because we are the stewards. So I think we could maybe in some way tying in again about climate action, that we do have a responsibility. I don't quite know how to wordsmith that, but just tossing that into the hopper.
So
Yeah,
if I
kind
may,
of.
oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead. No.
I was just going to add on to Barbie a little bit with that there. Our stewardship, but also the education of our community to be stewards of, and how we can play that educator role in that process. Like, we're doing these things, but how are we also educating and notifying our folks of that?
Okay.
Yeah,
There's the word. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Alfredo.
I would just say, aligned with all of that, just if there's a way to express a little bit of a a slightly more proactive um, role or responsibility in that, I think it'd be that would be good. This as it reads now, yeah, it's a little, I don't know, for me it feels like a little more of a passive value, where maybe I think what I'm hearing is we'd like to hear something a little more articulates our responsibility to react or to or not react, but to play a role in addressing a changing climate or something like that. But
Okay. Thanks.
And then I was gonna say, I mean, it says like we acquire, plan for, and maintain these areas, but I'd like to see things about like protecting and improving, and just leaving it better than how we had it.
Okay.
Because I know a lot of times, sometimes we acquire land and then we have to like re-naturize it, right? Like the rurals but all bring back nature. And so I think that's something that we should focus and showcase and add to our value.
Okay. Lisa.
I like everything that I've heard. So it all sounds great.
So what I've heard is that this is fine, but adding language to it that is more explicit about climate change or climate action, that emphasizes not just we care about this, but a responsibility for it. Positioning this as more proactive in its language, in adding protect and improve language, and then adding some language that clarifies that it isn't just us as the district, but we're engaged in educating our constituents around these issues and the importance of these issues as well, and the need for action, hopefully from them too. Did I miss anything that anybody mentioned? Okay, would you in term, go ahead, Felicia.
No, I guess I'm wondering, like, I kind of want to hear Holly's feedback. Because she has to wordsmith all this. And I don't know if I know one of our wonderful qualities is that we think this big, which is wonderful. And I'm just mindful of giving her the task of writing this.
Actually, I think your feedback is right on. It's really specific, it's actionable, it's concrete, it's pretty easy. And Alfredo, you summed it up best. It's pretty passive. Be more active and be more descriptive. And you gave us very clear direction on where to add the description. So in terms of process, I feel really good. I think we can give you a next version that you're probably going to enjoy a lot more. And for information for staff and budget process, it's really easy to convey that this is the value. We're just tweaking the language and we'll get it right next month. So feels easy to take it from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly.
Our two comms people working hand in hand, Alfredo and Holly here. Alfredo, don't get any ideas now.
Okay, then.
Holly, you have a good, strong team.
Yes, yes, very blessed.
And we can target, just for timing, we can target your next board meeting, which is not far off, and settle on that language.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, we could probably have a draft to you, Doug, by the end of this week, so we can move pretty quickly, no problem.
Yep.
All right, great. So, great example of taking an existing value, reaffirming it, and enhancing and strengthening it. So, nice work, everybody. And then there is the commitment to community vision. And Doug, would you or somebody on staff just say a word about this recommended phrasing change at the end of this?
Right. I maybe can ask Holly and or Aisha if they want to add to that.
Well, I will speak to it, but I want to really honor, it's really aligning this with what's going to be coming to you in the comp plan. And, visioning, we summarize what we heard from the public, but as we actualize the information and follow the direction, we know that things are going to morph a little bit as they contextualize into a THPRD context. And we really agreed with the board's feedback that you gave last year about broadening that support for natural spaces to environmental stewardship. So this feels like a really, really good time to make this edit here, because it'll be consistent with how we'll talk moving forward in the comp plan, and just feels really good.
So with that context, what do the five of you think about this particular value as it is phrased currently?
I think it's still great.
I'll jump in. This one is the only one that I had some, I just thought commitment to community vision is wonderful. I also think it, to me, when I read it, it definitely, to me, it focuses on a specific feedback that's already been gathered and has stopped being gathered. And I was wondering if there was a way to kind of commitment to that visioning process, which was incredibly important, but also some sort of way to talk about an ongoing, dialogue with the community to, so we continue to have an ear to the street, basically. So, but I don't, if that makes sense, I'd be curious what other people think.
I absolutely love that idea, Alfredo. You just that's a brilliant idea. I would jump on that train. I think especially with the intentionality that we have seen around continuing to have that dialogue and reaching out with different community-based organizations and having the listening sessions and showing up in our parks and asking folks what they want, I think definitely speaks to the value living on in what we do next, that it isn't just stagnant. So I thank you for that. I think that's a really important little tweak there.
Okay, Heidi.
Oh. I'm just thinking all the work that went into the visioning. And we're not going to replicate that anytime soon. So how do we, I agree, how do we continue to keep our ear to the street? But it's not going to be it's not going to manifest itself the way the visioning did, because that was a huge undertaking. So I'll just put that out there. But my initial thought when seeing commitment to community vision, to me, again, it was maybe a little more of a passive voice rather than more of that engagement, of that really putting to putting the community vision to work. And I know we say that we will be realizing the community feedback captured through the district's visioning process, but I'm wondering if that commitment, if us making that a more like, we're working on this, we're doing it. Yeah, we're committed, but more active. I do worry about us. I think we're always going to need to, be seeking community feedback, and we do through our surveys and different things that we're doing, but not to the extent that we were with the visioning process.
Yeah, if possible, I think Holly would have something to add here too.
Mm-hmm.
Let's hear from Felicita first,
Sure.
and then let's kind of come back to staff.
I hate having to follow Holly because she always does something really smart. So thank you. Yeah, I'm open to everything, to what Alfredo and Barbie shared. I think I also get kind of stuck on like, but we're, at least in the next couple of years, like we're not going to do the visioning process again because it's such a significant lift. And I'm also thinking like this document, these values are used in making big decisions. So I imagine if staff came to us and were like, so we're going to stop doing public outreach because it's too expensive, we would be like, what? Because our value is public input and community input. So part of me is like, well, we're already doing it. I don't know if this just needs a sentence of continual commitment to public outreach, highlighting the visioning. Because I mean, especially with 2+ years of a pandemic, like I still feel like that's our North Star. Like the amount of information collected there is truly profound. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, if I
So
can
here's
follow
what-
up on that, just I agree. I think the actual, the headline is high level enough where it can speak to both a set, robust process that happened and is not happening right now, and it kind of speaks to an ongoing effort to that listening and that understanding what the community wants. So maybe it is just a little sentence, just in the description that kind of frames it not just as this process that happened, stopped, is no longer being, we are no longer, accepting, feedback. Just something in there that places it as something that continues on a regular basis.
So let me summarize what I think I hear. I hear consensus that this is a relevant and important value to which you're committed, that you think it could be made stronger by adding some language that makes it a little more evergreen as opposed to specific to a process that happened, that emphasizes that this is a continuous iterative process of feedback that never stops. And to Heidi's point, that if there's a way to frame it in language that is a little more active rather than passive in terms of we're working it, we're putting it to work, we're making it happen, we're following it, it is our North Star sort of thing. So with that, what do you think, Doug and Holly and others?
You bet. Maybe Holly can speak into it here.
Okay. I really appreciate this conversation. And if anything, it just shows the board's absolute commitment to community involvement. And I really appreciate, Alfredo, the spirit with which you brought it forward, because you're absolutely right. We conducted that visioning outreach over a period of time and it ended. So I get that perspective. I just want to contextualize for just a quick second what the visioning process was meant to be. Because remember, it's commitment to community vision. It's not commitment to the visioning process, right? And so what we mean when we say that is we're committed to the vision that we heard from the public, because we asked the question, what do you want THPRD to focus on? What matters to you? How do you want to enjoy park and recreation services? And we got thousands of comments. We talked to thousands of people. You know, we won the International Association of Public Participation Award for the best public involvement project in the entire United States for cross-cultural outreach. So you're standing on an amazing foundation of information. And to borrow the words that you said, we have an absolute responsibility to be committed to the gift of information from the public and to use it, to borrow your phrase, Thomas, as our North Star as we move forward, which is why, you know, Aisha and her team have done such an amazing job embedding it into the comp plan. You're going to see it as you see functional plan updates in the next couple of years speaking to it. So it really is about keeping that commitment to public involvement, and that is the umbrella by which we are moving all of our work forward right now. And that link is very important to keep strong and unbreakable. But what I do like, and what I think could be added in, is a sentence at the end that contextualizes it, right? And says, this is our North Star of understanding people's hopes, dreams, aspirations for the future, but we are committed as we implement the ideas in this to follow a robust and culturally respectful public engagement process as we implement these ideas. I think if we add that sentence and that spirit at the end of that, that meets what you said, because Alfredo, you don't want to send this message that it's passive. We were, yay, we did it, we're done. You know, we're seeing it actualized by the way that we're incorporating new outreach techniques in everything that we're doing right now. So I think if we edit that, we'll meet the spirit of what you're saying, and we're also honoring what we promised the public, which is, if you really tell us what matters to you, we're going to build a robust plan and we're going to hold ourselves accountable to achieve on your goals.
So does that, what Holly just outlined, does that meet the need, Alfredo, Heidi, and Barbie, is the three people that kind of weighed in and said, a little more of this, a little more of that? And would that work for you?
Yeah, I'll just say for me, it just I really appreciate the context, and of course, the visioning, the act of gather this of the process predates me. So I mean, getting that to the heart and soul of what it was all about is awesome to always to be reminded of. So totally, I think that I feel good about it. If there's just some way, in whatever small way we can, to articulate or to just kind of yeah, all the stuff you just said, Holly. So stumbling over my own words,
Barbie?
but yes.
Okay, great. Barbie, does it work for you? Heidi, does it work for you?
Yeah, I think Holly, you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, I will, for what it's worth, engagement is a word that just keeps coming to my mind. Like, I know it's not right up there for me to read exactly. I got to open it back up, but we said feedback a couple of times. I think there's something there about, Holly, to your point of like, as we're engaging with this or putting it into play or whatnot. But no, I trust implicitly.
So is the process for this the same as for a slightly more robust environmental stewardship section, that Holly, you and whomever go off and come up with some draft language that you then bring back to this group to kind of ratify?
Easy peasy, easy edit, have it done quick.
Fantastic. I want to congratulate you on a really robust discussion that I think was a wonderful example of two things. One, continuity and fidelity to your core values, as opposed to blowing it up, changing it every 6 months or every year and trying to reinvent yourself. And the second is conversation about how to strengthen, how to enhance, how to bolster, how to improve, not change necessarily, but strengthen in a really thoughtful way. Well done. Congratulations. It's a very thoughtful conversation. Do
Doug's
you
not
need
clapping. I don't know what that's about.
clap, Doug?
My hands are tired after COVID.
Do we need a few minute bio break or refill our teacup or something before we move on to the next section, or are we ready to just continue on to the next section? Up to you. Does this mean continue on, or does it mean bio break?
Continue.
It means continue on. All right. Here is the next section. So there's recognition of a couple of things. That budget priorities might be more fluid. They may not be, but they might be more fluid than values. Typically, your values really are very consistent year to year, not permanent, but very consistent. And it's not that your budget priorities aren't consistent, but depending on environment and resources, those may or may not shift. There is proposed revision of the language under the third priority, but let's just start with this first one. So investing in your employees.
Unfortunately.
I'm sorry? Did somebody start to?
I think someone
Say
accidentally came off.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. So take a look at this. And what do you think about this as reaffirming it as a continued budget priority?
I'm good.
Okay.
Absolutely. Has to.
Okay.
I think we
Heidi,
keep it.
Barbie, and
Yeah.
Yep.
okay.
Yep. Good.
Barbie and Alfredo.
Same.
Same. All right. All right. Great. Ready to move on to the next one?
Mhm.
Or is there
Can I
any-
say something about that? Investing in employees and technology. I think for the record, it's good to just, I know we go through the activity every year, but I think it's always, I mean, for me personally, an important statement to say we're investing in our employees because they're doing the work that we need to have done. And so I know that we all gave the thumbs up, but I just want to acknowledge that how important it is to us. Like, yes, it's an obvious absolute yes. And then with technology, as technology is just moving forward faster than we can keep up with it, it's an obvious yes also. So I just want to put that on the record. Like, we're not just giving it the thumbs up because it's the easy thing to do. It's really because we believe in it.
Okay.
Maybe that's an obvious statement, but I think it's important to put out there.
Heidi, are you suggesting that you just to kind of put it out there verbally like you just did, or that there's some way to...
I think it's because, you know, we have record of our meetings and it's all thumbs up kind of thing, but I think it's just really important to recognize, like verbally recognize, like, yeah, we really agree with this. And I know my peers feel this way too, but for us to put it in the record as well.
Right. Does anyone else have any comment about this particular priority? Okay. Let's take a minute to look at this second budget priority. What do the five of you think about this as a budget priority as it's currently phrased?
I think we need to change it a little bit. I think we are still rebuilding. You know, we still don't have the patrons coming at the rate that they did pre-COVID, pre-pandemic. But I don't want to just assume that this is another rebuild. I mean, I think it's working upon the work we've done to continue that, but I think we need to tweak the language
And
because
are you,
we've had time to work on this, and we have been. Does that make sense?
yes, it makes sense, yes. Do you have an idea about, and I'm not asking you to kind of wordsmith it right now, but when you say we need to tweak the language, do you have anything a little more
Yeah.
specific about it?
So I would say rather than this will continue to be a rebuilding year for the district, I would say to cut that part of the statement and say, as we continue to rebuild
I see.
and return to programming pre-pandemic.
I see.
I
Okay.
mean, it's a little wordsmithy, but I just don't want the community to assume that we're just always rebuilding and, you know, we're working on it. We have been, and we've done a great job. Staff has done a great job. So just sort of tweaking it a little bit.
Okay. So others of you, what do you think about this as it's currently worded and or with Heidi's recommended edit? So we'd like to hear from others of you about this.
So I'm stuck on something that isn't helpful because I'm just stuck. I don't like the word access, and I think that's just something that I need to work through. Especially, it doesn't to me align with equity, and I feel like justice is too strong of a word maybe and gives like a visceral reaction for some people. But access just like no, it's not. It's just not a word that I love. That being said, the intention here is 100% who this board is and what we try to do and how we push ourselves and the budget and Doug. So the intent of this and what everything that's behind it, I'm 100% for. I think if I understand what Heidi's saying, I think I agree. Like, I mean, maybe we delete the rebuilding because, and like maybe even the first sentence, and just start with we prioritize expanding program offerings. Like, I just want to be mindful of like, I don't know that we'll ever go back to normal. And I know it's really painful to hear. But yeah, do we say we're going to rebuild for the next 10 years? I mean, maybe that's what we decide, but you know, for me, I would just delete the first sentence.
Okay.
My challenge there is if we delete the first sentence, because I'm in agreement with both Heidi and Felisa. I wonder if then we remove rebuilding from the value, right? Because it's framed there as saying like that we're building programming. So if we take that out, it's missing the context of what it is that we're actually rebuilding. I'm not sure that was incredibly helpful. I apologize. I'm like you, Felisa. My mind is working through how best to address this.
Maybe continue to build programming.
So rather than pressure you to come up with exact language, let's just make sure we capture what it is you want to see more of, want to see less of, the direction you'd like to see it. go in more and kind of invite staff to kind of think about exact wording. But part of well, let's hear from the other. Barbara, did you have anything else about this other than your response to what Heidi and Felicita have offered?
Not at the moment.
Okay. So Tia and Alfredo, where are you with this?
Alfredo has his hand up. He can go first.
Sure. Yeah, I think for me, I mean, I think push comes to shove, I'd rather move away from the rebuilding, verbiage, and just
Okay.
kind of express a commitment to kind of the most just I'm trying to think of a flame, like robust and creative programming as possible, which is only as possible with staff and demand. But so I think just for me, moving away from that sort of like we are, I guess, yeah, I don't think we're standing in rubble, you know what I mean? So I think that's where I want to come up, we're standing where we're standing, and it's not at the same level we were, but let's, and it, to Felicita's point, it may not really ever or in the near future be at that exact same level, but let's still have this commitment to offering great things that the community wants and needs.
Tia?
I think for me, I would probably want an expansion on what access for all means. Like maybe bring in our values of it's about, racial justice, not justice, but I would say so about just expanding and integrating our community that's representative of race, ability, sexual orientation, all that kind of stuff that we would focus on here. I don't know. I don't like access for all anymore. It's just so like blah, but maybe that's just me. But I mean, we can still say emphasis on our access for all work, but if we could add a sentence on like we're focusing on, that means focusing on calling it all out, all the things that we see that of who we're trying to outreach the coming year, which I know race is something that we committed to. And then I know there's a lot of conversations now on disability stuff. So being able to call that in the budget to give staff focus would be good too on what we want to see.
Okay. So here's what I think I hear so far is that this might feel a little dated, not meaning out of date, but the rebuilding, we're not standing in rubble. To Alfredo's point, we've been doing this and we've been doing it well, to Heidi's point. So maybe just kind of striking some of this initial language. The second is the recognition that we may or may not return to pre-pandemic participation levels and offerings. The world has changed in some significant ways, so it doesn't mean we're not aiming high, but it may be different. And that may not always mean pre-pandemic levels and offerings.
Well, and can I just add something that Doug has said for a while, and I'm going to phrase it wrong, but it's really like build back better. It's not about rebuilding; it's about building new things in response as a learning opportunity. So I just want to be mindful of that.
Right, which is different than committing to pre-pandemic participation levels and offerings. So, and then there is the access or access for all kind of language that two of you have pointed out, doesn't really resonate with you as much. as some other language might. And then Tia has mentioned, in addition to race, ethnicity, underrepresented groups, that this may be an opportunity to call out maybe the broader array.
Not necessarily at the end. The financial that sentence is like on financial aid and whatnot. It was more of like broadening. What is our definition of who is all? What is our definition of access for all? Who are we focusing on? We're focusing on
So
making sure
here,
we take into account what kinds of populations.
so it would go here more than it would down here because this is specific to, but this is not, this is about partnerships and events and broadening financial aid. But you're just saying that might go here a little more than down here.
Yeah, or an extra sentence of what that means, access for all, that we're
Okay.
focusing on. Yeah.
Okay.
And it can be pulled from our first value, you know,
Right.
what is stated in that first value.
Right. So Doug,
Yes,
Holly,
maybe we can-
others?
Yeah, maybe we can have Holly, our professional editor, maybe ask a few questions. And we have, we've been testing out some verbiage like play for all, you know, which I think actually came from the visioning program. You know, so there's some options in there for sure, but maybe Holly or Aisha, do you want to ask a few clarifying questions?
You know, I think this one, of all of the topic areas we've discussed, this one's going to take a little bit of thinking to get back to you. I don't know that I've got a great off the cuff response right now. To be honest, I think updating it on a process piece, it makes a lot of sense. I really like the feedback you gave that we've made some progress, and so that doesn't feel reflected here. But just know your staff are still in the midst of tremendous transition, right? We've talked about the changes in staff. You know, we had a leadership team meeting last month, and when Doug asked, how many people are here or in the same role you were a year ago, half the people raised their hand that they were in a new role, right? So there is a lot of transition and a lot of change, and it might not be as visible, but it's really felt within the organization. And I think this goal has been incredibly, or this priority has been incredibly helpful. And it's really been a rallying cry for, I'll just say for myself as a manager in the organization, to prioritize the work is to build back programming as we can and to expand access to the people who need it most, the most underserved. So I think if we take the spirit of that with an update of where we're at the pandemic, continuing to focus on rebuilding programming to be as robust as we can be, and do it by prioritizing access to the underserved first, right? Like your expansion of Center DMV, allowing pre-registration, all this amazing stuff we're doing, I think all of that is reflected in there. So if that makes sense, I think we've got enough to edit it with an update and better language on focusing on our equity values. And I think we can get there.
Holly, I don't know if this is a good word, but maybe like you said play for all, maybe like play for everyone. Like everyone seems much more personable than all. All is just so, I just don't like the word all. Yeah, but everyone singled it down to a person.
Yeah, you actually just labeled our goal perfectly, envisioning it's play for everyone. So
yeah, we're gonna stop using A words. So
okay, do we feel like we've kind of captured the essence of the changes that we'd like to see here, sufficient for staff to go off and bring us a proposed rewrite? Or do we feel like there's anything left to be clarified for them on this?
I think we're good.
great. Maybe if we could, Thomas, before we hear from everyone, board member wise, on the third one, if Aisha could speak into this a little bit of the intent or purpose behind the rewrite.
Absolutely, you bet.
Hello again. Yes. So when we took a look at this document in preparation for your retreat tonight, one of the things we were grappling with was, the big picture of what we're doing as an organization. So beyond reimagining our programming, beyond the investment we're making in our employees, we were thinking about what else we needed to do. And part of those things, that investment in employees and the investment in rebuilding programs, was having to take a different look at how we do things. We know that we're going to implement our class comp at some point soon, and that's going to have an impact. We know that there's financial impacts for doing what we want to do, which is remaining the employer of choice within the area. And so one of the things we really thought we needed to focus on that side was the development of a financial model that makes the most sense and is sustainable in the long term. And that involves a bunch of different things. It involves having a robust grant strategy. It involves looking at our resource allocation model and how we charge for classes, how we fit things into our cost pyramid. And so we know that that's foundational work that we really need to put the effort into now, so that we can be better set up for the future. And so we've always listened to what Thomas says. I know all of you do as well. And Thomas has always told us we can focus on 3 priorities in a year. And we did not want to put any brakes on the investment in employees or technology, or in that rebuilding programming, or whatever we end up referring to that now. But one of the things we did think about is that the work that our team has been doing on the park services side to look at the future is something that can remain a priority for our division. It doesn't necessarily need to be at the level of the district. And so what I suggested is that we trade this out, at least for this coming year, and focus in on this much more overarching strategy of developing those operating models and financial models that serve the district's needs into the future as the district priority. And we'll continue to do all the work about figuring out how we best provide trails and parks and infrastructure into the future. But that will be handled at more of a divisional level priority for the coming year. So that's sort of what we wanted to present to you. And if you have any questions about that, I'm happy to answer them.
That was super helpful. Thank you, Aisha. I love it. So excited about a different pyramid or an inverted pyramid. I don't know. But I think this is spot on. I mean, all that we've learned over the last 3 years around having to update the budget constantly, and we're in a new era for the district, which means we have to take a careful look at revenue and expenses. So I think, yeah, this should absolutely be on the budget priorities. Thanks.
I agree.
I'm in
Spot on.
agreement.
I am as well. Thank you for the explanation, Aisha. That helped tee us up as well.
Alfredo?
Yep, feel good. Thank you.
Doug, was there anything else about this that you wanted to add, or has it all been said, do you think?
No, I think we're fine. Thank you.
Great. Well, congratulations. You just did a bang-up job revisiting, reaffirming, clarifying, strengthening, updating your budget priorities. Great job. One of the things that I'm just going to say this because I can. Your conversations are really thoughtful, and I have a lot of respect for the way that you, as electeds and your staff leadership, have these sorts of conversations that are really thoughtful, as opposed to kind of reactive or off the cuff or reactionary or agenda driven or personality driven. These are really thoughtful, strategic conversations. So congratulations on that. Doug, would you like to talk about the parking lot for a couple of minutes?
Yes. Again, in our discussions, Thomas and Felicia and I, we talked about, after having the discussions with regard to our investment in employees and the recognition that it will constrain our resources from that perspective. And of course, I am as much the reason why the parking lot exists than anyone else. And we had this discussion of, well, should we even talk about it? Because, it's difficult, but there is the recognition that new stuff can happen, with the acknowledgement that whatever goes on the parking lot really does have to be a break-even perspective of what it might cost the district or bring into the district, or it is a swapping out of program topics or activities that the park district is in. So I don't think it's healthy to eliminate the parking lot, but with the acknowledgement that we just need to manage carefully what the board would consider putting on it for more detailed research and analysis to figure out, is it a good thing? Is it capable to move on? The one item that has been on there for some time is a subject area, after school programming, that we've all been working on a lot, and we're still working on. We still have opportunity in front of us. So I think it's a healthy mechanism to manage concepts as we move forward, because I'm still a very firm believer that if our program staff, I make this comment to program staff all the time, and that is that if you don't have some programs that are failing, then we're short on creativity. Because the reality is we serve a lot of people, and keeping things fresh and updated it's a requirement.
Was there anything else about that item that needed to be kind of talked about or discussed or reviewed, or not?
I think the after school thing is like this really strange issue, because we have to have a willing partner, and we don't have that right now. When we have that, I think we're all going to be in a really hard position of, what the heck do we give up potentially, and like what is break even for us? I mean, we just haven't had the luxury of having that conversation yet, as a direct result of we don't have a willing partner yet. And
But
when we
then-
get there, we may get there, and then we will have a very difficult conversation.
I mean, shouldn't that kind of clear the parking lot though, right? Like we've looked at it, we can't do it right now. It's something on there, like, and then if the opportunity comes, that's not necessarily has to come from the parking lot. That's just like a whole district thing. Like this, right? Like this grant came in. What do we do something about it? But like we've brought it into the parking lot. It sat there. We all evaluated it, and we just can't do it right now. So shouldn't that wipe it off the parking lot? I guess. Should it still be sitting in the parking lot?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Thomas?
Great question. Is, the purpose of the parking lot is to assess and vet things for both mission alignment and viability, programmatically, affordability, timing, etc. If you've done that in effect and it's a no-go for now, maybe the parking lot has worked and you remove it. And just because you remove something doesn't mean it can't ever come back up.
Right.
Or it's permanently banned forever, the parking lot. It just means the parking lot served its purpose and it's now empty.
I would champion it to stay, because Thomas, don't you, that was an
It was totally not an eye roll.
because it is a passion of each one of my peers. I'm probably the least passionate about it because I don't have children. And because I mean, we hear it from our peers on other elected bodies, other leaders in the community of how critical this is and what is THPRD doing. And so I feel like we're sitting here like willing, enthusiastic partners to at least have a couple more conversations, and they just can't happen. Like we only work with enthusiastic, willing partners, right? So and this isn't a diss to BSD. I want to be very clear. It's a gigantic organization, and I know they have a lot on their plate. So
And recognition that they have new folks
Yeah.
serving
Yeah.
that are learning what we are
Absolutely.
doing now
Exactly.
with after school programming and the like, that it's, you know, that change of passing of the baton.
Yeah.
So I think we should keep it in the parking lot.
Thanks,
as well.
Heidi.
I'm just saying, like, I feel like our parking lot, I mean, during my tenure, we visited it like one time and we had a few ideas. And I feel like to get it off staff's thing, it should just be like, we're going to do it. We're not going to do it. We can't do it right now. And it needs to go away. And then should something come up again, right? Like, should we have a conversation with BSD or something? Because I already think like preschool is like already like on the conversations, and all the employees know that's like a potential thing, and we'll hop on it. And it should something change, we can put it back in the parking lot of something different that makes it more manageable, that we should be investing more staff time now to really look at something. But for right now, it's just kind of sitting there weighing in on Doug and staff, like, should we be doing something with it? We haven't made a decision on it yet. And so
And I
don't
think
know.
that's okay, because I think, and sorry, Doug and staff.
I guess
think
more for me, it's like we should be reviewing it like either every quarterly, once a quarter. And so we should say like, right, like if we have a whole bunch of new projects, it should just be like, okay, well, we need to, these are all the ideas that we have now. These are the ones we want staff to move forward with. And if it just constantly is there, it's just going to keep taking up more time when we haven't made a move on it yet. To me, anyway.
So maybe we could hear from Barbie and Alfredo about this. And the parking lot predates your arrival, so we were kind of making some assumptions that you're kind of up to speed on this, which I'm sure you are. So do you have thoughts about this? And the discussion is, do we remove it, which means clear the parking lot, knowing it could be re-added or revisited at any time in the future, or do we keep it in there, even though we have determined that for the foreseeable future that we're not going to do anything with it?
I understand the conundrum that we're in, and perhaps maybe Doug, you could maybe help let me know what the capacity is that having it remains like weighs on you and staff, because perhaps that's something that I'm blind to. My bias says out of sight, out of mind, and I can't help but make a fear-based decision that if we strike it, that indicates we are not intentional and this isn't something that we're focused on. And I would agree with, I think I've heard both Felicita and Heidi mention this, like, I do think we're all in agreement that this is a priority. I think even in just last week's conversation, like we are actively having conversations. I think to your point, we don't know the action that it's going to take, but if we're speaking to relationship building and we're speaking to our values and we're speaking to ways in which what opportunity could be, I then tend to think, let's leave it on there. That's showing that this is something that is at top of mind for all of us. And so leaving it there indicates that this isn't a hard stop, that what this is a ... And we just have to be patient for that ... to come to fruition.
Alfredo, have a view?
Yeah, I kind of agree with all of that. Yeah, I guess I don't know enough about or maybe I'm, yeah, what the rules are, I guess, about how things can be, what the hierarchy of things on the parking lot can be. But yeah, I don't really have a firm feel for having something on here, what that does, what that trigger, what action that automatically triggers for staff must continue, drilling on this, even though we know we're at a current stop, or you know what I mean. So yeah, sort of agree with how Barbie framed it, yeah, on this particular one. And um, but yeah, there's other things I'd like to throw on there. So if it's like we can't move on to, or I don't know, if having this on here is some sort of log jam, then we can revisit. But yeah.
I do think Tia's spot on about like we're not visiting it regularly. So we don't talk about it regularly. We don't have the chance to submit ideas for the group to consider. So I think we just haven't built a good practice around that for sure. And so then, this comes up and we're like, oh, we haven't talked about that for like a year.
Well, I guess that's my thing, is that I feel like we need a little bit more procedures for this, like dates, like, okay, January is coming, so everybody if there's anybody who didn't solicit ideas when it came up, like, it needs to come so that in January we reevaluate. And I wouldn't want to see the preschool for all because on there again if there's nothing that we're going to change for it, because that logs jams all the things that we have to review again. Like, what are we're going to review it and say, like, okay, well, staff is going to have to re-review it again to see, like, has anything changed, what do we need to present to this group, like, what is it that we can or cannot do again when really they should be working on the new ideas. And should something come up, then it comes back into the parking lot where when we review it again, this is what's changed. Staff, I need you to take more time and look at it closely now. That's my partake on the thing, right? Like, so it's like I asked for more pickleball courts. They say we can't do pickleball courts right now, or already in the works. Okay, got it, move on. The next time the parking lot comes on, we shouldn't have to re-review it again and have staff say the same thing again, or figure out what kind of update there is when it's not a project that we're moving on right now.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a clarification question real quick. Is there a place, Doug, where something that the board has stated, either by majority view or unanimous view, that it would like to do at some point in the future when opportunity presents itself? Is there a place that can live and stay and not be forgotten, not be dismissed, not out of sight, out of mind, to Barbie's point, and the district can be accountable to, other than the parking lot? Or is the parking lot the only place where that can live? To kind of Tia's point, I guess.
I would say it's multifaceted. In part, it's my mind. We store these things, and but the parking lot really, and I really appreciate Tia's emphasis on this, because it is, part of it is we're coming out of the pandemic, and the last subject area was the parking lot. Thus, it really did fall into we should put that on the agenda. Like, and half the time you talk about an item that concerns staff. Well, it's kind of like, well, you put it on the agenda, something might come up. And in the midst of the pandemic, it was a pretty tough time period. Having said that, there is value when I'm talking to other agency leads, the ability to talk about something that's on the parking lot that we chose to pause on, but it qualified to have a discussion. Anything that the board has an active discussion on, and the end result is not, it wasn't a 3-2 vote that bad idea. It was a consensus that not a great time, or we need so-and-so to step into it before we could go. That's a different message as far as I'm concerned, that thus, and at any time, new topics can go on to the parking lot. And it's then an active board discussion of, let's better understand. Do you want us to study it? yes, we can study it. We bring it back to the board, and then the board makes a call of, that is a higher priority. Let's not do that other thing, and let's do this. So
let me ask, so again, is there a place where the board's interest, the board's enthusiasm, the board's commitment to move forward with something at some time in the future, when circumstances, partnerships, funding, opportunity, whatever allow, is there a place that can live other than your head in a way that keeps the district accountable to it?
Yeah.
Other than the parking lot?
Yeah, I would say the only other place is the exercise we just went through, and that is the budget priorities. Now, the budget priority, keep at a high level.
Yeah.
Finding some mechanism in between. I'm not uncomfortable with the parking lot. Maybe that's something we can look at to figure out, do we change some of the criteria? Do we create a category within the parking lot? Obviously not more than 3 items, Thomas, but do we find a way to manage that so that good concepts that just can't happen right now don't go away?
Okay. Heidi, you had a question, comment, thought, recommendation?
I have a comment because aside from Doug's brilliant mind and our amazing staff, our board could change tomorrow. I'm not saying it's going to, but things happen. Board members change, elections happen, whatever. People step down, whatever it may be. So I think if the parking lot is the only place we have to have it, other than Doug's mind, let's keep it in the parking lot. And I have to reflect on having participated in the Preschool for All events this past year and talking with BSD board members about this actual issue, and some of them not realizing the work that has been done and the conversations that have been had because we have new board members there. I think it's worthwhile to keep it there. It's such an important piece for us to really address.
Okay.
And I'm not saying any of us are leaving, and Doug's not leaving. We're not going to let him yet, but just to know that we need to have something out there that states what our priorities are.
Okay, so Doug, is there a way to keep that in the parking lot but flag it as vetted, assessed, and no for now, or no go, or not possible, or not yet, or something? Not no, but not yet. In a way that doesn't feel like a constant burden on staff, or it's this thing that's hanging that you're expected to perpetually be reevaluating, so that it stays concretized, but it doesn't suck up kind of mental or other energy of staff unnecessarily? Is there a way to do that?
Yeah, I think so. Let us play with that. We can play with it. So,
Tia, if staff could come up with a way to flag it thus, could you live with that?
Yes, but I also want a more procedural way that we address this parking lot stuff.
Yeah.
I think I like the idea of a new calendar year. Let's make sure it's on the January agenda. Let's make sure in December we're checking in with folks if they have an idea they want to submit. So thank you for that.
Sounds good.
Can the rest of you kind of live with this as a kind of proposed path forward?
Can I ask a question or make a recommendation as it relates to this parking lot topic? I mean, I know there have been many conversations with BSD folks and others around after school programming or pre-K or whatever it may be. I wonder if just a quick synopsis of those things and sort of where we stand in those conversations. And I'm happy to contribute to that as it relates to Preschool for All and some of my BSD board conversations. That way we just sort of know that it's not just sitting there. There's work that's been done. It's just right now it's sort of in a holding pattern. I think that would help all of us for those
Yeah.
of us not in those conversations too.
Yeah, maybe we can pull that together by the December meeting. You know, it's tricky because part of the context to all of this is what we're really talking about is an expansion of a program that exists.
Right.
You know, because we have our own after-school programming.
So another great discussion is how to honor this process that you developed, how to be faithful to it, not faithful, how to be faithful to it, I guess, how to honor it, how to ensure that there's consistency in terms of this is a big deal to us, this matters to us. We don't want to risk it being forgotten or out of sight, out of mind. And to Tia's point, how does that work in a way that doesn't just create perpetual work, perpetual assessment, perpetual expectation on our staff of something that we've already decided is not now?
Yeah.
So multiple factors, multiple nuances here, but reasonable resolution. So congratulations.
Can I make one
And
more comment?
Yes.
So
please.
sorry.
What?
Passionate about this one.
Uh,
Moving forward with this
Mhm.
parking lot topic,
Mhm.
time is, right for us to have a BSD joint meeting. And we've got new people on the board, we've got older people, like how we can tie this all together and keep it moving forward. So I know I've said that before, but I'm just going to say it again. I'm sort of like Felicita right now. Just repeat yourself. Like
Super
we need-
enthusiastic and
yeah,
delightful.
super
Yeah. Okay.
delightful. Like we have a great idea. Let's do this. Let's get these people together. Let's do it. And
So
I'm happy to
Doug,
participate.
Yes.
Doug, is that, first of all, Barbie, Alfredo, Felicita, Tia, do you also support this? Because you need
Having a
because you
board
direct
meeting, joint board meeting, is that what we're talking about? That,
whatever
yes,
Heidi's suggestion.
I do. But I also hesitate because I'm like, this is taking up staff time, and this is why I don't want it sitting on the parking lot. It's like now somebody has to write up all the things that we're talking about because we're revisiting it at the parking lot. And is it really helpful? Is it going to move anything forward? Not right now. But I do support a joint board meeting.
So
That
maybe,
I think,
yeah, maybe we use December to to, everyone get on the same page in terms of where are we? And, where's preschool for all of that? And then we make a choice of, do we want to make that request of the school district to have a joint meeting? And it can be multifaceted. It doesn't have to solely be about after school, but I think it is, since it is such a trigger point of go, no go, that, it'd be important to create the opportunity, if we're going to have the meeting, to create the ask.
and in the spirit of the parking lot, there is work involved, and to Tia's point, there is work involved now for staff to assemble the information, to bring it forward, to pull together a joint meeting. And we need to recognize the fact that there's work involved. And so it would be reasonable in the spirit of the parking lot for staff to come back and say, of course, happy to do it if that's what you want us to do. And here are the conditions around that. Here's what a realistic time frame for us to do it. Here's what we will need to delay doing in order to make up time and space for this, if this is what you want. Because that was also part of the parking lot, was that there are trade-offs. Every great idea, every wonderful opportunity is great, but it also creates work, and just being realistic about that. So Barbie, Alfredo, Felicita, you on board with this?
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Agreed.
Okay.
I'm totally in favor of the joint meeting. So I hear your point, and it's kind of like a tangent to parking lot, but thank you, Heidi, for voicing that over. I think it's the time is right.
And Doug, for you and your staff to honor the spirit and intent of the parking lot, it is important that y'all come back with a realistic assessment of the time it will take and the energy it will take to do this, as opposed to just yes, as opposed to just kind of adding on, because that's where we started from. And so it's not being stingy, but it's helping the board understand that these requests take time and energy.
Yeah, yeah. It's also difficult to manage from my end, Thomas, when you say that when the staff is on the call. But that's okay.
Well, I'm just saying, this is not, obviously accommodating the board is great, but it's not just a sure yes, yes, yes,
No,
yes,
I
yes,
hear
and
you.
we'll just add it to the list and happy to do it. And
No
that
problem.
was great. Okay, good, great. All right, way to go. Tia, you okay? Can we go forward with this?
Yep.
All right. Great work, everybody. I'd like to invite you to super quickly share two things. Not two paragraphs, two sentences, two bullet points. I want to invite you to share something that you are particularly happy, pleased, proud, enthusiastic about in terms of the district in the last year. And I also want to invite you to share something that you feel good about regarding yourself as a member of the board of the district. So it's both something you feel good about personally, that you've brought, that you've added, that you've done, and the district. So it's two, not just one. Alfredo, are you volunteering to go first?
Yeah, I'm batting lead off here. I am extraordinarily proud of the work I've seen the district make to connect with particularly Spanish-speaking communities who were not previously engaged with the registration process. So I think that has been huge, tangible results that have been made and have happened there. As for myself, I am most proud that I have successfully brought my most authentic, imperfect, sometimes good, sometimes bad self to everything I've done as a board director. And I look forward to polishing, but not too much.
Thank you, sir. Who'd like to go next? Yeah,
I can
Tia.
go next. I am incredibly proud of our staff, the resiliency, the hardworkingness, the imaginative, everything, the flexibility, and just how fast they can pivot on a dime and create something wonderful. It, it's the reason why we're all still up and standing, and that the community has something to come to is because of our staff. So I'm just so incredibly proud of them. What I'm proud of myself and us as in general is the culture that we've created and the space for our staff hopefully to be able to do their work and have good direction and have the comforting sense that we're behind them. And I think we've done a good job of hopefully celebrating them and supporting them and giving them the tools that they need to get the job done for our public, for everyone to benefit.
Thank you so much. I want to ask you to reframe the second part of that to be about you, not we, you.
Well,
What
that's
are
a big
you?
thing. Okay, fine.
I'm not saying it's not a big thing. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just inviting you to speak to something you individually feel good about in terms of what you have brought here.
I think I've done a good job on creating relationships with both our staff and our board members to create a welcoming environment for good work to be done.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Heidi.
Yes, putting my hand down. I too, it's about the staff. But I think the recognition of all of the staff changes, promotions, people leaving, people coming, people going. There's been so much transition, and I'm speaking even beyond just pandemic stuff, just staff transitions. And to us, it seems very seamless. And you all seem like you're doing well, and I know it's challenging, and so I just want to recognize, like, kudos to you all, and the staff that reports to you as well, because that's been difficult with hiring, and so kudos there. um I almost did what Tia did. um I think for myself, I think the last couple of years have been incredibly hard in so many ways, personally, with my own professional work. This work has been tough, really tough at times, and I'm just happy that I have stuck through it, and I see that, you know, even when times are really tough, we're going to get to a really good place, and a place where we can feel really, really proud.
Whoops.
I just knocked off my headphones. Sorry. I was
That was
so
a dramatic. That
emotional.
was a very
I was
dramatic. That was a very dramatic close.
I was starting to talk with my hands.
That's great.
I don't use my headphones very often. So
That's fine.
anyway, kudos to the staff.
And to you, Heidi.
Thank you.
Barbie. Or Felicity, you're next. Sorry.
Felicity, you have your hand up.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
So sort of copying Alfredo, in terms of really proud and love at the district, the intentionality behind so much little things that other people wouldn't notice, like the new map that's in Spanish, and what was done to it wasn't just a translation, it was almost a reinterpretation of what do our Spanish speakers need in a map, and the thoughtfulness that is required in that, and the emotional energy. Like, it's just, I'm so profoundly appreciative and moved by that. So thank you to all the staff that did that. In terms of myself, I'm proud that I'm a connector. I know it can be overwhelming and I'm working on it. And I know that it benefits the district and my peers and my community directly. So I'm going to keep doing it. And I like that side of me.
Thank you very much. Barbie.
Well, I hate to piggyback, but it just, I cannot help but just give kudos. I'm most proud of the staff. I truly, I guess when we're on the front lines in our day jobs, so to speak, hear and have felt the reaction to COVID in ways that I've not seen here. I think the time and energy and positivity that comes forward to us, to think how that translates to our staff, is just really remarkable and to be admired. Because I think, I can't recall exactly who just said this, but it's kind of like the never let them see you sweat. We've had some hard conversations. We've had to make some hard choices. And yet it seems to continue to ride with a tone of empathy and with a tone of positivity. And we've just got to do what we've got to do. And I leave feeling inspired. So I think I'm most proud of the staff. And so I wanted to share that. I think on a personal note, it's somewhat similar to Alfredo, just in the term of this is my first year and first foray into public service. And so with that comes a lot of insecurity and anxiety and learning to play by the rules and how do we engage and how can I show up with intentionality to make sure that the reason I ran, that I'm living that value. And I think I'm most proud that there are times when I'm still super, super scared or hesitant to push us in ways. But I think you can't sit in this seat if you aren't going to voice those opinions. And so I'm proud that I continue to show up even when scared. That's mine.
Thank you very much. Doug, would you like to share both a personal point of pride and an organizational point of pride, and just briefly?
Yes, I certainly am in full agreement with the board that the staff is truly remarkable. You know, that ability to move forward, regardless of the weight that keeps pressing the other way. And our community really is been patient, has been resilient as well, and gaining comfort in moving forward with their lives as well has been great. The portion about myself, Thomas, wow, I am not built that way, just like everyone else on this call. What I will tell you is I do take great pride in playing the leadership role that I play for the district. And I couldn't do it though, Thomas, without the amazing support that the board gives. I've never worked with a board that acknowledges the effort that staff puts into it. And it's what keeps us going, because we know we're not alone. And you all as elected officials, it's a very unique environment that you show the empathy, you care, and can't replace that.
So what I heard, thank you, Doug. What I heard is you're proud of staff. You are proud of and grateful and appreciative to the board for the support that they provide you and staff, and that you are proud of the leadership you provide to the district. That's what you're proud of personally.
Thank you.
Great. So just to the staff on this meeting, Sabrina, Jared, Christine, Julie, Clint, Jessica, Holly, Aisha, we see you, we know you're there. Our intention has not been to kind of ignore you or forget you. We understand that you undergird all of this. So thank you so much for being here and for everything that you did to kind of help make this happen. And we're grateful to you, even though we didn't hear from you. But we see you and we honor you and thank you very much. And I just want to thank you all for the amazing work that you continue to do, both collectively as a district and just as important individually as leaders. So thank you for both of those things. Cheers.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Thomas.
You are so welcome. Do you have to officially vote to adjourn, or?
I don't think so. No. You just say thank you. Good night.
Have a great night.
All right. Thank you.
I
all.
look
Bye,
forward to
thanks,
seeing you on
everybody.
stage, Thomas. On stage.
Good night, y'all.
Bye, everyone.